Please welcome back Robert Klein.
Hey, we're back. On my left and on my right are sitting two gentlemen from a very, very famous, world-famous rock band, as you know, Aerosmith, which is an American band, not some foreign. Look, I have nothing to say about it, but will you welcome Steve Tyler and Tom Hamill? Steve? Oh, thank you, man. Welcome.
Thank you kindly.
Steve, Tom, say hello.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay. In a fair fight, let's get to it. Could you beat up the Rolling Stones or any other English?
Right off the bat.
I mean, like, you know, a little American know-how. You know, they don't use their hands in sports. Soccer, they kick balls.
That's what they call our new album, Right in the Nuts. Without a doubt.
Do you ever think of it in national terms, the fact that your main, the other bands most closely associated with your style are English, in a way?
Back in the beginning, we wanted to become the first American band to do the same kind of high-class R&B as the English were doing at the time.
High-class R&B?
Yeah.
Rendition
extra,
versions.
More balls. Back in
I'm not sure you can say extra on radio, can you? I think so.
Vaginal
Go
use.
ahead, I'm sorry. I think you can. Go ahead.
So we were conscious of that when we started out.
Yeah. But now, not really.
Not at all.
They didn't take you very seriously, though, when you first came out.
Not at all again.
Yeah, immediately. So now that they are, and you're being played on all these stations, like all these stations that carry our show, these highfalutin, cream of the crop kind of hip
More chins in the Chinese
stations.
telephone book type stations.
Well, what does that mean? Wait a minute. More chins in the Chinese telephone. We may have
Go
hit
right ahead.
We may have
Hit
hit a
bottom
chin in the
ground.
army here. What do you mean by that? So you feel like a little like you now you like us, but then you're not particularly forgiving of all this, right?
Oh no, you brought it up.
Oh, well, I'm asking you. You speak candidly. I'm asking honestly about it. Now that does it not
how
matter?
it went down in the beginning and how it is now.
Yeah, like for example, everybody in their career has bugaboos. People that Greg Garrison, who produced, you know, really handy television work like the Dean Martin Show for years and Gold Diggers, he wouldn't put me on the Dean Martin Show after they had booked me. You know, didn't think I was good enough and funny enough and all this. And years later now, I'm not his friend or anything, but it doesn't matter to me. Does it matter to you anymore that they?
No, it really doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me that pig is still working in this business. You know what I mean? You know, putting up
Everything I say will get cut anyway.
Well, what do you think? I mean,
I think they all sucked back then, yeah, without a doubt.
and how about now?
They still suck.
But they're better at it.
This might be history, ladies and genitals.
Well, in the sense that, listen to me, going through head here. In terms of the, I'm on PBS here.
Actually, it was good for the band that it worked out that way because the only alternative, since we weren't getting airplay and interviews and press, was to go out on the road and prove it ourselves to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty hard when we went out on tour with the Vishnu Orchestra. We finally went out with Mott the Hoople, and that was a good bill, and we could start building ourselves.
That's right. There was the idea that they weren't playing you. You had to go out and prove it the other way. It's a decade now of being in big time show business. Steve, you have a new baby.
I sure
I
do.
understand you're an enthusiastic father. I myself am in the market for the baby. The idea.
That's more chins.
What is it like this go round going on the road? You're an older man, if I may say so. Now, 10 years older than when all this started. What's your approach to all that of going out?
It's all happening again. All stations are playing rock, kicking ass, loving it, displaying it, saying disco sucks. Hey, let me tell you about it.
Disco on the radio.
Really?
No, but what I mean is your personal feeling about going out on the road. Now you have a child and you're older.
It's tough.
And you're
Come on, lay off.
Well, that's what I spend a good deal of time on the road.
No, I love it. We've just gone through a conversion. We got a new album out. It's going on 2 million now.
In the Ruts.
Night in the Ruts.
Night in the Ruts.
It's going on 2 million sales. The band is kicking ass more than ever before. Kids are getting older. Kids are getting younger in the audience. I'm getting older. I'm getting younger. What? You know, rock and roll is back again. Here, here.
I thought you were going to say that. Well, I don't think it ever
Here.
left. But I thought you were going to say rock and roll is back again. Rock and roll is not back again because you kept on reversing everything you said.
Oh, no.
You sound like Catherine Deneuve in that commercial. I like a man who's short yet tall,
Long
quiet
but
yet
thin.
noisy, handsome yet ugly. You know, she doesn't know what she wants.
Oh, no, I know what I want.
What do you want?
I want to get fucking laid right now.
You're joking.
Indeed. What do you want?
Survive the next 15 minutes with my head above my... Well, I want many things, you know, but what I'm interested in now that the struggle was a decade ago and now it's a new ball game. See, I have met a number of people on this show who are successful musicians and so forth, and they're sort of around my age, kind of, or a little, and how they feel about it as opposed to how they used to feel about it, going on the road, getting on the stage, performing. What about this violence thing that happened in Philadelphia? Kind of ugly. 2 incidents. Were you hit with a bottle, I think?
Somebody wrapped a couple M80s together and chucked them up at me and Joe, that's all.
What's an M80?
Firecracker of sorts.
Oh.
Something like that. Just about took my retina off. Just some asshole
Yeah.
took...
How do you know? Maybe they came from a difficult home?
Without a doubt.
No.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Vaginal yeast infection from the pool, no doubt.
You had a...
Someone chucked it up on stage. We were doing an encore, so we walked up on stage.
Yeah.
And people are chucking stuff all the time to see if they can hit them, you know.
Yeah.
I touched them, yeah. Well, there. So it just happened to go off right here, I remember. And it blew a hole in Joe's finger, in the back of his hand.
Yeah.
Blood went... I thought he'd gotten shot.
Yeah.
Because it was such a... Right in front of us. You know...
And also there was a bottle incident, wasn't there?
Yeah, last time we went there,
Why in that same town, the city of brotherly love?
Most likely because we came back again for a second time.
Well, why is there something about...
Enthusiasm. It's really enthusiasm. It's their way. It's, I think, a way
Very
of...
striking.
If they can touch us somehow with a bottle or a football or whatever, they become part of the show.
I don't
They
quite
became
understand that, but I'll buy it.
Part of the
I don't understand it either, but that's
Is there something in your performances?
You know the person.
Let me ask you this. I see several people right in this room poised with things ready to throw. Is there something about you guys? Is there something
you have
about
your
you
pants
guys?
dropped. I didn't tell you to do that.
Do you recall that night if at any time you said, "Come on, throw a firecracker"? Did you ever actually request a firecracker, or maybe you know?
I remember one time.
Did you ask for a beer, maybe?
One time we played Pine Knob.
A bud.
In Michigan, I think. They were throwing beer cans onto the stage. Steven said, "Well, at least throw full ones." So the next thing we knew, there were 5 or 10 spinning full beer cans flying all over.
Yeah. Well, I think you should know better than to suggest such a thing.
No, it was just it was fate, you know. Like hell, we'll go back there again, you know. It's ridiculous. It's just the way it is, you know.
Would you have thrown something if you were in the audience and they were Aerosmith?
Positively, without a doubt.
I think you're not kidding in a way. You know?
I wish I could see us sometime.
Yeah. I said that too. I'd like to see me in
I
this
asked you to take
Broadway
my
show.
place last night. You said you were in the pool.
I was shooting something, yes.
What were
We're
you
shooting.
shooting
That's
again?
what you know.
Is it the heroin or the cocaine, Robert?
This was drugs. No one does drugs at your concerts, do they?
Never. Absolutely.
Hey, come on, wait a minute. Drugs? At your concerts? Well, what about that? I mean,
Why did we call her out in bootleg?
wait a minute, I want to hear more about this. Just don't go away here. We'll be right back after this word. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, and we're speaking to Steve Tyler and Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith, and the new album is Night in the Ruts. Taken in a cave, right? You look like coal miners. On the other side, it says "Right in the Nuts," which is a play on that
Absolutely.
sentence.
That cover was originally shot for the single that Richie Super wrote for me called "Chip Away the Stone," and we were in L.A. at the time, and there's an agency out there that shoots you for $6,000. I said, you know, send your secretaries out, look up the 1921s, get all the old suits and costumes. So they got us a whole truckload full of crap and stuff. And
We shot it at Griffith Park.
Sure.
Yeah. Hang on.
I'll tell you
about
that
parks. You want to play esoteric parks?
There's been more.
Morrison Park in Chicago. How about that one?
There's been more Star Treks and even going back to Buck Rogers that was filmed at this particular.
Yeah.
It's a hill.
Yeah.
It must be 100 feet high, and it's a cave all the way through it. And then there's a T trench.
Oh, and those old science fiction ones where they had a mop pails for helmets.
Everyone
tells Otto that we will not go to his planet. You know, the broomsticks.
Exactly. All of them.
Very
all
bad
of them shot
technical
there.
stuff.
Ever since we've shot there, we've noticed.
Hey, you were Sergeant Pepper. You were in that movie. George Martin is here today with us. And I know you all were talking before the program. And that was a very big thing in the Aerosmith career, isn't it? Because you came out great in that movie.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
Yep.
Did it mean something at this age? Even more legitimacy?
Yeah, we do the song for an encore.
Yeah.
Positively.
Yeah. The
Beatles.
Beatles.
We used to test ourselves out as far as what we could do in a film. The length of the segment was just right.
You want to do that again?
If the right thing came along, and maybe if George Martin was supervising the musical production.
As long as the kid don't die.
Your kid?
The kid don't die.
You? You have a kid named Mia.
Yes, sir.
There's a song on the album, Mia. You're a sentimental guy. You know that people who see that you're too vulnerable, they'll start throwing things on the stage.
Yes, but how do you know I'm singing about her?
I assumed, no?
M.I.A. One more time.
Suddenly I was in another world. He was not singing about her. He was singing about someone else. You're also a teen idol. Tom, how do you feel about Steve being a teen idol?
I think it's great.
Really?
It helps my income.
Wonderful, pragmatic answer.
I get to be one sometimes, too.
Really?
A lot.
Hey, I know. Listen, plenty of teens like him, but not probably as much as him, though. Anyway, want to score some competition here. That's a thing I find it hard to relate to. When people are fans of me, usually they may be a little older. I don't know. What is it like to look at an 11-year-old girl in the eyes who is madly in love with you?
What's it like
Just
to
like
look in
now.
her eyes?
That's what it feels like.
11 plus 50.
11 plus 50.
What's it like?
Never mind.
No smell.
Never mind.
Print it.
I'm not asking any questions that were prepared from your press kit or anything like that, you know.
Won't find any.
No, the press kit is
Carol?
replete with things to ask questions about, you know, but I wasn't interested in that. It's just you're human beings. You've got personalities. You're nice people.
Well, all right. Thank you kindly.
You know.
Why don't you ask about last night? Were you
Last
there?
night you were at the Nassau Coliseum. They had to play during a hockey game. It had been booked, unfortunately. It made it very, very difficult, you know. I sing in the middle of their number, and it was a little messy there and cold, but once the hockey game, during halftime especially, you guys really did well.
We got a chance to play a couple of good numbers, yes.
Yeah, between the second and third period particularly.
Right.
Now, what is that like? It's not exactly intimate, but it's exciting, huh?
Yeah,
19,000,
19,000, 1920. We did an extra 1,000 last night, I think. Obstructed view tickets, they're called.
Really?
Yeah. The kids are like this.
Obstructive view. That means they're in Yonkers.
Remember me?
Oh. Well, they were reserved seats, though. You know. They were well behaved.
Oh, positively, no bottles.
But the people backstage.
Yeah.
I spent half the night on a drum riser.
Really?
Unbelievable. They drank all our beer, stole our T-shirts.
Really? Stole your T-shirts and drank your beer?
Yeah.
That really pisses me off, you know? I wish they lived in Saudi Arabia. Cut off their hand. You know what you get for stealing a T-shirt in Saudi Arabia? Cut off your
5
hand.
foreskins.
No, they do that over here.
Failure to make a left turn signal. Cut off your hand. Murder, you can't watch TV 3 nights. It's backwards then. That's no punishment at all. Listen, I want to bring on George and have you have a tearful reaction. Be like, this is your life. Sure. And we'll have his voice first. Boys, do you remember this voice? Hello. Let's take it again. And then bring him on, you know.
Hey, you're talking to One Take Charlie.
One Take Charlie. Oh, really? We'll
Without
talk
a doubt.
about that and more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. Joining us on our panel is the author of this book, which I'll hold up to the microphone. All you need is ears, George Martin. How do you like that? George, from your greeting here, you could go out on the hustings yourself and just stand on the stage and they say your name.
Well, I was going to start off by apologizing for being English, Robert, when you was talking about America earlier on.
I like to... We're jingoistic nowadays, you know. We just got to watch it. You know what I mean?
You start using big words now that you know.
Well, they may get a little bigger than asshole and... but not too much bigger. I won't make them too big, though. Jingoistic is, you remember the Dylan song? Oh, Mr. Paul Jingoist. No. Sorry, I have the wrong guy. George, that's significant to me, that this audience are a record-buying public. I have to just move Steve's mic. It's obstructing my view of George. That they're so appreciative of what you've done behind the scenes, and that's lovely, really.
Thank you. I think it's lovely, too.
Yes, it is.
I love you all.
Let's kind of sort of put this up front. It seems that you've had such a varied, important career, including working with these gentlemen in the Dr. Pepper movie, Sergeant Pepper movie.
Asshole. What an asshole.
But you'll always, but people will think of the Beatles producer. Is that? Would you admit that perhaps that has been the most significant part of your career so far?
Well, it was a pretty large part of my life.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to emphasize that book's not a book about Beatles.
Of course.
It's really a book about records and what I've been involved in for the past, dare I say it, 27 years. Of course, I started very young. And of course, I was with them for nearly a decade, so it was quite a large part of my life, and everyone naturally focuses on that. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm quite proud of it.
So you should be. But I noticed things like, I had not known that you were involved with Spike Milligan and Peter Sellers' comedy albums, because I consider them sort of classic.
Oh, they were lovely people to work with.
They're also brilliant and influenced my favorites, Monty Python and that sort of thing.
Right. In fact, I worked with all those people too. John Cleese I worked with before he'd joined the Monty Python group.
And records?
Yep. We made an album called Cambridge Footlights Review, which you've never heard of, but it'll be somewhere in the archives.
Right.
And there was John Cleese and Tim Brooke-Taylor and Bill Oddie and one or two other people like that.
One of the ways that one can tell how it's changed, I have not read the book yet, but I'm looking forward to it later in the week. But there's a picture in the book and a little bit of text about the difference in equipment. There's a picture of Lennon sitting next to this console that you used in the early 60s.
Yeah, the old green monster.
Yeah, it looks like those Buck Rogers movies from the 30s.
It was, actually.
Hail for helmets. How this technology has galloped. And what I guess I'm interested in is there a trend back now to simplicity in the recording studio, live performances?
Well, there's been a tendency in the past couple of years to get really good quality of sound by direct-to-disc recording. People are so proud about having a very clean disc when it actually records straight on disc without going through tape. And of course it's very clean. But that's what I was doing in 1950 when I started, when we couldn't do anything else.
Right.
And it's amazing that we've gone back full cycle like that, because when I first entered Abbey Road Studios in November 1950, the records were being recorded on wax. They weren't being recorded on tape. They did have a tape machine, a funny old grey thing in the background, which was considered very suspect.
Like a Wallen sack or something sitting there, right?
And
I had one.
Well, they didn't really trust it. They liked recording on the disc, and the lathe on which the disc was cut was driven by a falling weight that was wound to the ceiling before each take. I mean, it sounds incredible, but the reason was that electric motors weren't stable enough in those days to give us a regular 78 RPM.
When you walked in that day in 1950, did you think, I'm going to make history here? No, I guess you didn't. You never do know when it's
I was looking forward to my £7 at the end of the week to earn my bread.
There's a new studio of yours that's opening in, is it a Caribbean island?
Yeah, in Montserrat. We opened it earlier this year.
Did you? They haven't worked. There hasn't opened.
No, Steve hasn't been there yet.
No, we were offered it for the last album, but we knew goddamn well that if we'd taken the shot, we wouldn't got nothing done.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Jimmy Buffett was
blowing the
here
weed
some
on
time
us.
ago.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett made Volcano there.
Yeah, he did an album somewhere. Was it in that?
That was Volcano. Was the one he did there.
And James Taylor was there, and I said, how could they get anything done? It was.
Well, in fact, Jimmy worked very hard. He got the whole thing done in 2 weeks. He worked. It's surprising. It sounds as though you're not going to work hard in a place like that, but in fact you do, because you want to get out in the sun and enjoy yourself. So Jimmy would work from 2 o'clock in the afternoon through to about midnight, have a few drinks on the way, and then the following morning he'd be water skiing or sunbathing or whatever, and swimming in the
oxygen. The first Beatles album you did took about 14 hours to make.
That's right. Well, rather less than that, actually. 13, I think.
Right. It was kind of a record breaker. That's what I mean. I wonder, has the talent improved or has the mechanics, and is it sort of back to nature? I wonder.
I think talent has improved.
Yeah.
I mean, the general level of talent nowadays is fantastic. I think standard musicianship of the average people is amazing. You know. No, really, Tom. I think the average run-of-the-mill band that people haven't yet discovered are already now good musicians. Way back when the Beatles started, the people were literally 3-chord players. But everyone has to be so much better now to break through. It's really tough.
Do they really? Do they really? I wondered. I've often wondered about that.
I think it's very tough breaking through this enormous amount of talent that exists now. Everybody's so good.
Especially since after the Beatles, everybody went out and bought a guitar.
Yeah, that's right.
So many talented people with guitars. Eric Clapton once said during an interview where the interviewer had complimented him on being the best guitar player in the world, he said, "I know there are thousands of guitar players out there unrecorded that are twice as good as me."
Well, I think he was being modest. I don't think they
Yeah, I sent away for the Arthur Godfrey chord maker on the red, pink, purple. You didn't have to bother with hurting your fingers on the strings. George, were you one of the people that had to discover what a record producer does? I mean,
I've been trying to discover it for the past few years.
Has it changed in all these years what a record producer does?
Well, there's various styles of record producer. You know, I mean, there's the engineer producer, the guy who just sort of concentrates on his hi-fi sounds and getting his right drum sound. Spends about 36 hours getting the sound out of a snare. There's the.
What kind are you?
I'm just the kind of. I don't know. I'm just me. I just.
Are you scientific and electronics minded?
I'm not an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I know how to handle a board. You can't live in the studio for as long as I have without knowing something about it. But I wasn't trained as an engineer. I started as a musician. And
an oboist.
Well, I used to play the oboe.
Did you ever play with Mitch Miller together? He used to play the oboe too.
He was before my time.
You know, do you still like classical music? My wife is in the Metropolitan
yeah.
Opera, and of course I like classical music.
No, I love classical music. I took up the oboe because I liked the sound of it, and it happened to be an instrument I could lug around without too much bother. You know,
indeed, it is.
A bassoon or a harp was a bit much.
But it makes you very much talk like this after a while. Your tongue gets caught and everything. It's a difficult instrument to play. How did guys like the Beatles, or how did they learn to trust you? You're a grown-up. You're a pretty sensible guy, you know.
Well, I was grown up then too.
Well, you were always grown up. You know what I mean?
I've always been grown up.
How did they know to trust you musically in your opinions?
Well, we were very lucky because I was very lucky anyway. Because see, when they came along, I was a pretty important guy comparatively. And they were unknown, so that they.
What had been your at that point? What had you been best known for?
Well, I was
Jerry and the Pacemakers, that sort of thing.
No, that hadn't happened yet. That happened afterwards. Now, I was running the Parlophone label. I was head of the Parlophone record company in England, and I had been doing all these comedy records, Beyond the Fringe, Dudley Moore, and Jonathan Miller.
Oh, you did the original album of that?
Yeah.
I went to see them all.
And so I was running the label as well. And so that I was the chief of the label. So when they came along, they had to say yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. Well, I liked them.
Just like these fellas must have said on Sergeant
I've never
Pepper,
heard them
right?
say that ever.
Did Steve ever say yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir?
No, they got a longer vocabulary.
I know what he's going to say in a moment. Let's just rush to a commercial. Come right back. We'll be right back after this. We're back, and we're speaking to George Martin, who famous record producer, who is the author of this book, All You Need Is Ears, and Steve Tyler and Tom Hamilton, Aerosmith, who have worked with George. And there was an incident that is related in the book, I believe, because our assistant Sandra was telling me about it, and I thought it was interesting. You had produced all the Beatles records, and then in this next to last one, John Lennon wanted Phil Spector to produce it, and then at the end they wanted you to reproduce it.
No, not quite.
Is that
Phil Spector actually? I did the original when John wanted it to be an honest record, as he put it. He didn't want any of these producers.
Was this Let It Be?
Let It Be. And he didn't want any overdubbing. He didn't want any editing. He wanted it to be just a live, honest recording, which was okay, except that it wasn't as perfect as he liked as we were doing it. And so we kept on doing take after take after take.
They were honest mistakes.
Yeah. And he said, let's try it again and we'll see if we can get it better. So when we got to about take 63, I'd say, well, now I'm not sure whether 47 wasn't a little bit better or 19, you know, it got to that stage. And our final album was okay, but it had a lot of goose on it. And we then went on and recorded Abbey Road. We got back to producing it as I knew it, because Let It Be was hardly a production. And then afterwards, when the split came between Klein and Eastman and Lennon and McCartney, Paul rang me up one day and said, you know, they've taken the tapes of Let It Be and they've taken them to America. I said, no, come on. And George and John had taken them and given them to Phil Spector and done all the things that John said he didn't want done. Yeah, they overdubbed voices, they put on heavenly choirs and lush orchestral arrangements and so on. And then they put out the record. And EMI at that point said, well, no, they don't want your name on it because you didn't produce it. I said, well, I did the original, but they worked on it. So they said, well, maybe we'll give you some kind of credit. What do you want? So I said, well, why don't you put on it produced by George Martin, overproduced by Phil Spector? But they didn't agree with that.
Here to rebut George is Phil Spector. Phil, come on.
Now, let me just say here and now, I really regard Phil Spector as
He's a very big man, you know.
One of the
he used to be violent.
No, really.
Yeah.
One of the great talents of all our time. He made some fantastic records.
A little rough in an otherwise glorious. So we tend to idealize. We think of the boys as we did in those two movies, those early movies. And you were quoted as, I'm paraphrasing something, it wouldn't be the Beatles if they got together now. Having done their own for so long. I guess we thought they spent every waking moment together. And there was a wonderful documentary of Monty Python making Life of Brian, like a little half hour or an hour, hilarious, where they really revealed quite candidly they don't spend a lot of time together socializing. They work a lot together. And of course, this is the way it is. Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig really did not spend that much time together. That sort of thing. And do you think, I guess probably they would need the money if they ever got together again, no?
They'd never get together again.
Yeah.
No, it's impossible.
Impossible.
And I hope that if it were possible, it never would happen.
I get
Why?
the impression that if they so much as wanted to have one rehearsal just to see if they wanted to play together again, it would almost be like committing themselves to the world.
Yeah, I think they'd like to play together, but I don't think I'd like to reveal it to the public.
Yeah.
I'm sure they even have it.
They might well have done. I don't think so. I don't think John. I think John is so much into his own life now. I don't think he wants to. But it's all the big. If they could just play together for themselves without any hassle, I think they'd probably like to do that. But it's such a big deal now. It's like the return of the Messiah, and everyone's going to be let down if it ever happens.
They could never be as good as expectations, you know?
No, exactly. Impossible.
Well, why not? Why not? Because
Well,
they don't.
first of all, they'd have to rehearse for about 2 years before they got back to the level they were at when they stopped.
Oh.
Secondly, what material are they going to do? Their old stuff? Nobody wants to hear that anymore.
Well, Aerosmith stuff.
Right. Start writing, Steve.
Let's come together.
Instant success.
Well, they could. There's a couple of old Frankie Avalon tunes. Well, aren't they all prolific music makers?
Yeah, but you see, if it were a Paul tune, then Paul would say, "Well, I've got Wings to it. I don't need Beatles."
Right.
And if it was a John tune, John would say, "Well, why? I don't think I want. I want to do it my way." Yeah, they've grown apart too much now to get involved in that way again.
Yes. And if they were together, George Martin probably wouldn't be producing.
I don't think anyone.
What made you want to write a book, George, about all this?
Well, I thought. I mean, that's the whole reason I started originally.
It's a hell of a picture of you on the cover. That's enough reason to write it. Great picture, isn't it? You folks at home listening on the radio?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I started about 4 years ago, just jotting it down in my own longhand, mainly because it seems to me that the record business is a very glamorous business for young people. And nobody had actually written a book like it was. What's it like to be in the studio? What do you do with 24 tracks? What are
tracks?
All 4 tracks. I mean, what about acoustics? That's got some bearing on it. And what about microphones and layouts and so on. So I thought I'd put that down in the book for everybody to know what it's about, and then punctuate it with a few anecdotes and a little bit of gossip and history.
All in all, it's an encouraging book rather than saying, hey, you think it's so easy, lonely at the top. Look at these guys suffering in Holiday Inns.
It's a great business.
How did you know?
Oh.
It's a great business, Robert, and I've been very lucky, extremely lucky.
How is your hearing?
Not so good. What did you say?
I was hoping to ask that to Aerosmith, but I didn't think they'd hear me. Any of you suffered any hearing loss because of the loud music that you play or listen to?
Well, my hearing won't be as good as theirs because I'm much older. And it's a physical fact that women have better hearing than men.
Really?
So that a girl of 18 will have a better hearing than a boy of 18. I mean, a higher dynamic range.
That's another macho thing I'm going to have to add to make sure my
dynamic
security...
and
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, honey. I'm a man. What was that, honey? I'm sorry, darling. I just can't hear you. I am a big man.
Well, dogs have better hearing.
Well, because we have hair in our ears. Maybe that's why. That could be it. Is there a geneticist in the audience? Shoot, we had one last week. Anyway, that's a really tough thing to find in an audience.
I think people do damage their ears by listening too loud.
Yes.
Too loud.
How do you, Steve and Tom? How do you protect against that? You never have?
Oddly enough, I'm losing 500 cycles.
500? Really? It's as low as that?
Yeah.
Right, because it normally goes off at about...
I'm sorry, 5,000.
5,000, yeah.
What note is that?
Yeah.
Well, just leave that note out, that's all.
Middle C is about 1,000.
A pinch of it goes, ooh, it flattens out, and I've had the hearing test. And we play at at least 100 decibels plus a night.
Yeah. The danger with a lot of volume is the intensity coupled with the duration. So in other words, if you have 130 dBs for a half a second is okay. Put it on for 3 seconds and you might be doing some damage. 120 dB, half an hour is okay, but 3 hours ain't so good. And so on. It's the coupling of the two.
And one thing that might that helps out a lot is that it's not the same frequency at that level for that length of time.
Right.
It's varied.
Yeah.
And it's not from the same source at exactly the same distance. You can move around the stage. You can actually find pockets of the stage where
I think if you're performing on stage, you're not so liable to ear damage as the people listening. Quite honestly.
Right.
You stand by the speakers, they're incredible.
Sure, I used to think the Kingston Trio was loud. Michael Roca-Plunk, that guy really sang out there. We'll be right back. Don't go away after this message. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Steve and Tom and Aerosmith and George Martin. By the way, you are George Martin. This isn't like Beatlemania. It's not George Martin mania, is it? Is it George Martin? An incredible simulation. Aerosmith mania. Thank you very much. And that interesting book, All You Need Is Ears, Night in the Ruts, is the new album from Aerosmith, As If You Need the Plug. Well, we had a wonderful time. I know I did. You're in the studio audience. Out there in America, if you're on the pike, keep your eye on the road. See you next week. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.